Nobody in the office believed I'd been demoted. For 7 years, I was the only one who kept this department running smoothly. Then, one morning, the boss's daughter walked in wearing her designer dress and cold smile, turning everything I'd built to ash. I didn't scream, I didn't protest, I stayed silent. But that silence, it became the most dangerous weapon I had, because while she thought she'd won, I was already planning something she'd never see coming. My name is Rachel Turner, and at 34, I'd built something most people in this industry only dream about. 7 years at Brightcore Media in Denver had transformed me from a junior strategist into the backbone of our creative marketing department. Not the face of it, I never needed that, but the spine that kept everything upright. My apartment downtown reflected who I was: minimal, organized, purposeful, no roommates, no clutter, no complications. Just me, my work, and the satisfaction of knowing I'd earned every square foot of this space through my own sweat and sleepless nights. I'd survived 3 major layoffs, 2 company restructures, and countless office politics battles. Each crisis had sharpened me, like a blade against a whetstone. At Brightcore, I managed a team of 12 brilliant creatives. Not officially, of course, my title was Strategic Operations Manager. But everyone knew the truth. When Derek's anxiety spiraled before a major pitch, I was the one who talked him through his breathing exercises in the supply closet. When Sarah's divorce threatened to derail our biggest campaign, I quietly redistributed her workload and covered for her without anyone in upper management noticing. When our intern Tom made a $50,000 mistake on a media buy, I fixed it before dawn and taught him how to never let it happen again. "You're the mom of this place," Sarah once told me over drinks, mascara slightly smudged from crying about her ex. But like, the cool mom who actually gets shit done. I wasn't their mom, I was their safety net, their translator, their shield against the corporate stupidity that rained down from the executive floor. Every Monday, I arrived at 6:30 a.m. to prep for the week, analyzing metrics, adjusting strategies, preparing answers to questions that hadn't been asked yet. By the time Gregory Cole, our CEO, strutted through for his weekly connection walks, everything ran like a Swiss watch. The creative department had the lowest turnover rate in the company. Our client retention was 94%. We'd won 8 industry awards in the past 2 years. The numbers spoke for themselves, or so I thought. "Rachel, you heading out?" Marcus called from his desk as Friday afternoon wound down. He was our lead designer, talented but perpetually disheveled, with glasses held together by electrical tape. "In a bit," I replied, reviewing next week's client presentations. "The Morrison pitch needs another pass. It's 7 o'clock on a Friday. And Monday is Monday." I didn't look up. This was our routine. Marcus pretending to worry about my work-life balance, me pretending I had one. The office slowly emptied, leaving me in the familiar, quiet hum of computers on standby and the distant sound of traffic from the street below. This was my domain, my carefully constructed kingdom where competence mattered more than connections, where results spoke louder than last names. I should have known it couldn't last. The first warning sign came 3 weeks ago. Gregory Cole had been grinning more than usual. Not his practiced executive smile, but something genuine, almost giddy. He'd mentioned his daughter was coming back from Europe, finishing her studies. The air quotes were his, not mine, accompanied by a wink that made my stomach turn. "Madison's finally ready to join the family business," he'd announced during a senior staff meeting. "She's got fresh ideas, international perspective, really going to shake things up around here." I'd kept my face neutral, nodding along with everyone else. But afterward, I'd pulled up Madison Cole's LinkedIn profile. Bachelor's degree in communications from a party school, a gap year that turned into 3. Instagram posts from Ibiza and Mykonos tagged "worst year's working holiday." No internships, no portfolio, no experience. Fresh ideas. Right. But I'd survived worse. I'd outlasted 5 fresh idea executives who'd come in promising revolution and left within 18 months. I knew how to wait, how to adapt, how to make myself indispensable. Madison Cole would be another speed bump on my career highway, annoying but manageable. That Friday night, alone in the office, I finished the Morrison pitch and backed up all my files, as always. I watered the half-dead ficus in the corner that everyone forgot about. I turned off the lights and headed home to my empty apartment, where a glass of wine and a book waited. I had no idea that by Monday morning, my carefully built world would begin its demolition. Monday arrived wrapped in expensive perfume and the click of designer heels on marble flooring. I heard her before I saw her. Madison Cole made sure everyone did. She swept through the office at 9:15 a.m., a full hour and 45 minutes after I'd already prepped the morning reports. Like she owned the place. Which, technically, her father did. 27 years old. Blonde highlights that probably cost more than Tom's monthly rent, carrying a Hermes bag that screamed, "Daddy's credit card." She wore a cream-colored suit that belonged in a fashion magazine, not in an office where Derek regularly spilled coffee on himself during brainstorms. Gregory Cole walked beside her, beaming like he was presenting a trophy. "Everyone, gather around," Gregory's voice boomed across the floor. "I want you all to meet Madison, our new Director of Strategic Innovation." Director of Strategic Innovation, a title that didn't exist until that very moment. A title that, according to the organizational chart I'd memorized, would sit directly above mine. Madison's smile was practiced, revealing teeth too white to be natural. "I'm so excited to bring my European perspective to this amazing team. I've spent the last 3 years studying market trends in Paris, Milan, Barcelona." She paused for effect. "I think we're going to do revolutionary things together." Studying market trends. That's what we were calling Instagram influencer trips now. "Rachel," Gregory's eyes found me in the crowd. "Come here. I want Madison to meet her right hand." Right hand, not manager, not the person who'd been running strategic operations for 7 years. Right hand. I walked forward, my professional smile firmly in place. Madison's handshake was limp. Her fingernails, painted in what I recognized as Chanel's Rouge Noir, barely grazing my palm. "So you're Rachel." She looked me up and down, taking in my simple black blazer and practical flats. "Daddy's told me all about you. You're very reliable. Reliable. Like a Toyota Camry or a microwave." "Welcome to the team," I said, my voice steady. "I've prepared a comprehensive overview of our current strategies and client portfolios for you." "Oh, that won't be necessary." She waved her manicured hand dismissively. "I prefer to observe first, get a feel for things. Fresh eyes, you know?" Fresh eyes that had never read a marketing report or analyzed conversion rates or stayed until 2 a.m. fixing a campaign that was bleeding money. The first week was observation. As promised, Madison floated through the office, her perfume trail marking her territory. She commandeered the corner conference room, the one with the best view, and turned it into her personal office. She scheduled vision meetings that consisted of her talking about synergy and disruption while scrolling through her phone. She asked me what KPI meant, Derek whispered to me after being summoned to one of these sessions. "Rachel." She literally asked what KPI meant. "Maybe it's different in Europe," I said, keeping my tone neutral. The walls had ears, and those ears reported to Gregory Cole. By week 2, the observations turned into interventions. Madison started questioning every decision, every strategy I'd carefully built, not with data or logic, but with vague statements about feeling and intuition. "This campaign feels too safe," she announced during our Monday morning meeting, holding up the Morrison pitch I'd perfected. "Where's the wow factor?" "The wow factor is in the 38% projected increase in their market share," I replied calmly. "The client specifically requested." "Clients don't know what they want until we show them." She tossed the presentation aside. "Let's start fresh. Something with more je ne sais quoi." Sarah caught my eye, her expression screaming, "Is she serious?" Marcus was doodling violent spirals in his notebook. Tom looked like he might cry. I'll set up a brainstorm session, I said, because what else could I say? We can explore alternative approaches while maintaining the client's core objectives. Actually, Madison's smile sharpened. I'll run the brainstorm. You can take notes. Take notes. 7 years of building this department, and I was reduced to secretary. The meeting that followed was a masterclass in incompetence. Madison threw around buzzwords like confetti, paradigm shift, blue ocean thinking, growth hacking, without understanding what any of them meant. She shot down every practical suggestion with, "That's not innovative enough," while offering nothing concrete in return. What if we just made it more pink? She finally suggested, after an hour of circular discussion. Pink is very in right now. The Morrison pitch was for a construction company. I took notes, as instructed. Every ridiculous suggestion, every misused term, every moment that proved Madison Cole had no business being in that room, let alone running it. My pen moved steadily across the page while my mind calculated exactly how much damage she could do before Gregory noticed. The answer, I would soon learn, was infinite. Because Gregory Cole wasn't looking at damage. He was looking at his daughter with the blind adoration of a father who'd spent more money than time on his only child. "Madison's bringing such fresh energy," he said to me that afternoon, stopping by my desk. "Don't you think?" "She certainly has a unique perspective," I replied. He beamed like I'd given her a Nobel Prize. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after Madison's grand entrance. I read it twice, then a third time, my coffee growing cold in my hand. Effective immediately. Rachel Turner will transition to the role of strategic assistant, reporting directly to Madison Cole. This restructuring will allow us to better leverage our talent and drive innovation forward. Strategic assistant? They hadn't even bothered to make it sound legitimate. I sat at my desk, staring at the screen while the office slowly came alive around me. Derek arrived, saw my face, and immediately knew something was wrong. The news spread like wildfire, whispered conversations in the break room, shocked glances across cubicles, the uncomfortable silence when Madison strutted in at 9:30, wearing a dress that cost more than most people's rent. "Rachel," her voice rang out across the floor, "could you grab me a latte, oat milk, half-pump vanilla, and reschedule my 2 p.m.? I have a spa appointment?" The entire department held its breath. 7 years of respect dissolved into a coffee order. "Of course," I said, standing slowly. "Anything else?" "Actually, yes. I need you to compile all of last quarter's reports. I want to see what we've been doing wrong." What we've been doing wrong. The quarter where we'd exceeded targets by 23%. I got her coffee. I rescheduled her meeting. I compiled the reports. Each task performed with perfect precision, my face a mask of professional calm. Inside, something was breaking, piece by piece, like safety glass splintering in slow motion. The first public humiliation came during the Thursday all-hands meeting. Madison presented my Morrison strategy, the one she'd called too safe, as her own breakthrough innovation. She'd changed the font and added clip art, but it was my work, my research, my words. "Questions?" she asked the room, avoiding my eyes. I raised my hand. "The ROI projections seem familiar. Could you walk us through your methodology?" She fumbled, stuttered, then snapped, "Rachel, as my assistant, you should be taking notes, not asking questions. Know your place?" Know your place. In front of 42 people I'd worked with, mentored, protected for years. Marcus's jaw clenched. Sarah looked ready to speak up, but I caught her eye and shook my head slightly. "Not yet. Not like this." "My apologies," I said smoothly. "I'll be sure to document everything." And I did. Every stolen idea, every butchered presentation, every client relationship she damaged with her incompetence. I documented it all. Week after week, the humiliations piled up. She scheduled me for weekend emergency work that turned out to be organizing her office. She had me fetch her dry cleaning during client calls. She once spilled her green juice on my laptop, deliberately. I was certain. Then laughed about how accidents happen. Why don't you just quit? My sister asked during our monthly phone call. You don't deserve this. I stared at my apartment ceiling, phone pressed to my ear. Because that's what she wants. She wants me gone so there's no one left who knows what competence looks like. But the worst part wasn't the menial tasks or public embarrassments. It was watching her destroy everything I'd built. She lost the Morrison account within a month. Turned out Pink wasn't what they wanted after all. She alienated our best clients with her condescension and ignorance. She made Tom cry. Actually cry, by screaming at him for her own mistake on a budget report. The creative department started hemorrhaging talent. First, it was Jennifer from copy, then 2 junior designers. Derek started interviewing elsewhere. Sarah took more sick days than she had in 3 years. I can't watch her do this to you, Sarah told me one evening, both of us working late to fix another one of Madison's disasters. It's not right. Right doesn't matter, I replied, reviewing the damage. Power matters. Madison had power. She had her father's last name, his blind support, his company. What did I have? Experience? Competence? Results? None of that mattered when the boss's daughter wanted to play executive. The breaking point came on a Friday. Madison had promised a major client, Richardson Tech, worth $2.8 million annually, a revolutionary campaign. She'd had 4 weeks to prepare. Instead, she'd spent those weeks at yoga retreats and wine tastings, posting about finding inspiration. Rachel, she called out that morning, panic barely concealed under her usual arrogance. I need the Richardson presentation. You said you were handling it personally, I reminded her. I wasn't included in the strategy sessions. Well, I'm including you now. I need something by 3 p.m. 4 hours to create a campaign worth $2.8 million, a campaign she'd present as her own. I could have refused. I could have let her fail. But Richardson Tech employed good people, and they didn't deserve to suffer for Madison's incompetence. So I worked. 4 hours of pure focus, pulling from every bit of experience I had, creating something brilliant from nothing. At 2:55, I placed the presentation on her desk. She didn't even look at it, just grabbed it and rushed to the conference room where Gregory and the Richardson team waited. I stood by the window, watching the city below, and made a decision. I wouldn't quit. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of breaking me. But I would make her pay, silently, methodically, with the same precision I'd used to build this department. The war had begun. She just didn't know it yet. The silence became my weapon, sharpened with each passing day. While Madison preened and postured, I began my quiet rebellion, a systematic documentation of every crack in her facade. It started small. I created a private folder on my personal laptop, encrypted and backed up to 3 different cloud services. Every email she sent with incorrect data went into that folder. Every budget discrepancy, every client complaint, every time she took credit for someone else's work, I kept it all. Rachel, you're being unusually quiet lately, Madison observed one morning, her voice tinged with something I recognized as unease. She stood over my desk, designer bag swinging from her arm like a weapon. Just focusing on my work, I replied, not looking up from my screen. As you instructed. She lingered, waiting for something, submission, perhaps, or fear. I gave her neither, just steady typing. The soft click of keys filling the silence between us. Well, she finally said, make sure you have the Brennan reports ready by noon. They've been ready since 8, I said evenly. I've also corrected the calculation errors in your quarterly projections. Her face flushed. I didn't ask you to. My apologies, I thought accuracy was important. She stormed off, heels clicking angrily against the floor, behind her. I allowed myself the smallest smile. The whispers started among my colleagues, soft at first but growing bolder. They saw what was happening, and more importantly, they saw how I was handling it. No tantrums, no complaints to HR, no tearful breakdowns in the bathroom. Just quiet competence in the face of blatant injustice. She's scared of you, Marcus said one evening, both of us working late again to fix Madison's latest disaster. You know that, right? She should be, I murmured, attaching another email to my growing collection. This one showed Madison approving a $50,000 expense for client entertainment that was actually a shopping spree in New York. Marcus looked at my screen, then at me. What are you planning? I'm not planning anything, I said. I'm just very thorough in my documentation. He grinned. Remind me never to piss you off. The support from my team was subtle, but powerful. They started CCing me on everything, creating paper trails Madison didn't even know existed. When she made impossible demands, they'd check with me first, quietly, carefully. I became a shadow government within the department, running things from my diminished position while Madison played boss. Sarah was particularly clever about it. Madison, Rachel suggested we might want to reconsider the timeline for the Henderson campaign. She'd say in meetings, making sure everyone knew where the real ideas came from. I didn't ask for Rachel's input. Madison would snap. Of course not, Sarah would reply sweetly. She just happened to mention it while fetching your coffee. The coffee. Always the coffee. Madison's daily power play, making me fetch her increasingly complicated orders. One Tuesday, I brought her exactly what she asked for, oat milk, half-pump vanilla, and watched her face contort. This tastes wrong, she accused. It's precisely what you ordered, I said calmly. I have the receipt if you'd like to verify. Are you calling me a liar? I'm offering documentation. That word, documentation, became my signature. Every time Madison challenged me, I had documentation. Every time she tried to gaslight me or the team, I had receipts, emails, recordings from meetings where she'd forgotten I was taking minutes. She started making mistakes, getting sloppy. The pressure of my silence was getting to her. She'd contradict herself in meetings, forget lies she'd told, mix up client names. Each error was carefully noted, filed away for future use. Why won't you just react? She exploded one afternoon, after I'd calmly corrected her in front of a client, politely, professionally, but unmistakably. Why won't you fight back? I'm doing my job, I said simply. As instructed. This isn't... You're not... She struggled for words, her composed mask slipping. You're supposed to be broken by now. There it was, the admission. She wanted me broken, destroyed, gone. But I wasn't giving her what she wanted. Instead, I was giving her something far worse, the constant unnerving presence of someone who refused to be diminished. Tom, sweet, nervous Tom, became my unexpected ally. He'd been keeping his own records, furious about how Madison had screamed at him. She's been charging personal purchases to client accounts, he whispered to me one day, sliding a USB drive across my desk. I thought you should know. I palmed the drive smoothly. I don't know what you're talking about, I said clearly, for anyone who might be listening. Then, quieter. But hypothetically, someone should be very careful with hypothetical information like that. He nodded, understanding. We were all careful now, moving like chess pieces in a game Madison didn't even know she was playing. The beauty of my silence was that it forced Madison to fill it. She talked more, explained more, justified more. And the more she talked, the more rope she gave me. Every boastful lie about her European experience, every cruel comment about a team member, every admission of ignorance disguised as innovation, I collected them all. You're different, Gregory Cole mentioned one day, stopping by my desk. Quieter. Just adapting to the new structure, I replied professionally. Madison has such a unique vision. He preened at the compliment to his daughter, missing the undertone entirely. But I saw something flicker in his eyes. Doubt, perhaps? Or was that wishful thinking? Either way, I kept building my case. Brick by brick, document by document. Madison thought she'd demoted me, but she'd actually given me the perfect vantage point. From down here, I could see everything, every crack in the foundation, every weak point in her armor. And when the time was right, I wouldn't need to raise my voice. The evidence would speak volumes. The Henderson project was supposed to be Madison's triumph. a $4.2 million campaign for a luxury hotel chain, the kind of client that could make or break a reputation. She'd promised them revolutionary concepts that would redefine hospitality marketing. Instead, she delivered a catastrophe that would finally push me to my breaking point. It was a Thursday when everything unraveled. Madison had spent 3 weeks developing the campaign, which meant spa days and liquid lunches while I scrambled to create something workable from her incoherent notes. But this time, she'd locked me out completely, paranoid about my growing influence. "This is my project," she'd announced. "I don't need assistance from an assistant." Fine. Let her hang herself. The presentation was a disaster. She'd mixed up the Henderson brand with their competitor, used stock photos with watermarks still visible, and somehow managed to spell luxury wrong on 7 different slides. The client sat in stunned silence as she fumbled through buzzwords and blamed technical difficulties for her incompetence. By 4 p.m., Henderson had pulled their account. By 5 p.m., Gregory Cole was looking for someone to blame. By 6 p.m., Madison found her target. "Rachel deliberately sabotaged me," she announced to the entire floor, her voice shrill with desperation. "She gave me the wrong files, wrong information. This is her fault." The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. Everyone stared, at her, at me, at the train wreck our department had become. "I wasn't involved in the Henderson project," I said quietly. "Per your explicit instructions." "You're lying!" Her perfectly composed mask finally cracked completely. "You've been undermining me since day one. You're jealous, bitter that I have the position you wanted." "Madison," Gregory tried to intervene, but she was beyond stopping. "She's nothing but a middle-aged nobody who can't accept that times have changed. She probably deleted my files, changed my presentations. I have the email." Tom suddenly spoke up, his voice shaking but determined. "Where you told Rachel not to touch the Henderson project. Sent 3 weeks ago. You CC'd the entire team." Madison turned on him. "You little—" "I have the receipts," Sarah added, standing up. "From your client meetings at the Ritz-Carlton Spa, charged to the Henderson account." "I have the original presentation," Marcus chimed in, "the one Rachel created as a backup that you refused to use." One by one, my colleagues stood up, phones and laptops in hand, ready to show their evidence. The quiet rebellion I'd fostered had become a revolution. Madison's face cycled through rage, disbelief, and finally, something like fear. She looked at her father, expecting salvation. But Gregory's expression had changed. He was seeing something he'd been blind to, or chosen not to see. "Everyone back to work," he said quietly. "Madison, Rachel, my office. Now." The walk to his office felt eternal. Madison clicked ahead in her heels, trying to recapture her authority. I followed silently, my folder of documentation tucked under my arm. "Daddy, you can't believe them." Madison started as soon as the door closed. "Sit down," Gregory commanded. His voice had lost its indulgent tone. "Rachel, I want to hear your version." "There's no version," I said calmly. "Just facts." I opened my folder and began laying papers on his desk. Financial records, email chains, client complaints, a letter from Richardson Tech expressing concerns about Madison's professionalism, another from Morrison Construction asking if I was still available to consult. 3 months of evidence, organized with the same precision I'd once used to run his department. Madison tried to interrupt, to explain, to blame. But Gregory held up his hand for silence. He read everything, his face growing paler with each page. "The Henderson presentation," I said finally, placing Tom's USB drive on his desk, "is just the latest incident, but if you check the client billing records against Madison's expenses, you'll find a pattern that goes beyond incompetence." "This is entrapment," Madison shrieked. "She set me up." "No," I said, my voice steady as stone. "I just documented. You did the rest yourself." Gregory looked at his daughter, and for the first time, seemed to really see her. The spoiled, entitled child he'd created, who'd never learned consequences because Daddy had always cushioned her fall. "Madison, you're suspended pending a full review," he said quietly. "Effective immediately." "You can't, Daddy, please." "Go home, Madison." She stood, shaking with rage, and looked at me with pure hatred. "You think you've won? You're still nothing. You're still just an assistant." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My silence had already said everything. After she stormed out, Gregory and I sat in silence for a long moment. "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" he asked finally. "Would you have believed me over her?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. "I need time to fix this," he said. "The department, the clients." "I've already created recovery plans for each affected account," I said, pulling another folder from my bag. "If we move quickly, we can salvage most of them." He looked at me, really looked at me, for perhaps the first time. "You could have let her destroy everything out of spite. That would have hurt the team, the company, the clients. They don't deserve to suffer for Madison's incompetence or my pride." He nodded slowly. "I owe you." "You owe me nothing," I interrupted, standing to leave. "Except perhaps the courtesy of evaluating people based on merit, not DNA." That night, I sat alone in my apartment, a glass of wine untouched on my coffee table. I'd won, technically. Madison was gone, her reputation in tatters. But I felt hollow, exhausted, like I'd been holding my breath for 3 months and could finally exhale. My phone buzzed with messages from the team, celebrations and congratulations. But I couldn't celebrate yet. The war was won. But at what cost? And what would tomorrow bring? I picked up the wine, took a sip, and stared at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Madison was probably raging to anyone who would listen. Gregory was probably reconsidering his hiring practices. And I was here, in my quiet apartment, victor of a battle I should never have had to fight. My mother's voice echoed in my memory. "You don't need to shout to be heard." "No," I thought, setting down the wine. "You just need to survive long enough for the truth to speak for itself." The weekend passed in a blur of preparation. While Madison was likely plotting her revenge from her luxury apartment, I was crafting something far more devastating, a comprehensive recovery plan that would make me indispensable. Monday morning arrived with an electric tension in the office. Madison's absence was palpable, her empty corner office like a missing tooth. The team moved cautiously, unsure whether to celebrate or prepare for retaliation. "Team meeting in 5, I announced, my first executive decision without asking permission. "Conference room B." They gathered quickly, eager and nervous. I stood at the whiteboard, marker in hand, and began outlining the salvage operation. "Henderson is gone but not lost," I said, writing client names in my neat handwriting. "Their CEO golfs with Richardson. If we can deliver something exceptional for Richardson, we have a chance. Sarah, I need you to create a formal apology strategy. Marcus, design concepts that actually understand luxury hospitality. Tom, audit every account Madison touched. We need to know the full damage." "But do you have the authority?" Derek started. "I have the knowledge," I replied. "Right now, that's what matters." We worked with surgical precision. Every email was crafted carefully. Every client call scripted for maximum impact. I didn't claim Madison's office or her title. I simply did what I'd always done, made things work. Tuesday brought an unexpected visitor. Margaret Henderson, CEO of Henderson Hotels, stood in our lobby at 8 a.m., asking for me specifically. "Ms. Turner," she said when I met her, extending her hand. "I heard about Thursday's situation." "Mrs. Henderson, I understand your decision to withdraw." "I'm here because Richardson called me," she interrupted. "Told me about the presentation you created for them in 4 hours. Said it was the best work he'd seen in a decade." My pulse quickened, but I kept my expression neutral. I simply did my job. Your job, as I understand it, was fetching coffee for someone who couldn't spell luxury. She smiled slightly. I'd like to see what you could do with adequate time and authority. By Wednesday, I'd secured a second chance with Henderson, a smaller project, but a foot in the door. The team was energized, working with the focus of people who'd been freed from a tyrant. But I knew this reprieve was temporary. Madison wouldn't stay down long. The confrontation came Thursday evening. I was alone in the office, reviewing contracts, when she appeared. No designer outfit this time. She wore jeans and a wrinkled silk blouse, her usually perfect hair pulled into a messy bun. "Enjoying my office?" she spat from the doorway. "I'm working from my desk," I replied, not looking up. "Same as always." She moved closer, unsteady on her feet, wine on her breath. "You destroyed me." "You destroyed yourself. I just kept records." "My father won't let this stand. He'll find a way to bring me back. And when he does," I interrupted, finally meeting her eyes. "I'll still be here, still working, still documenting." "Why?" Her voice cracked slightly. "Why couldn't you just quit like the others?" I set down my pen and really looked at her. 27 years old, never told, no, never faced consequences. Almost pitiable if she hadn't tried to destroy everything I'd built. "Because this job isn't just a job to me," I said quietly. "These people aren't just employees. The work isn't just busy work. I spent 7 years building something meaningful. You tried to tear it down in 3 months for sport." "It wasn't sport," she said. And for a moment, something honest flickered across her face. "I wanted to prove I could do it, that I was more than just his daughter." "But you never tried to actually do it. You just wanted to be it." She stood there, swaying slightly, the fight draining from her. "He's sending me to our Phoenix office, starting over in a junior position. No direct reports, no strategic responsibilities." Phoenix. A lateral move disguised as opportunity. Gregory's way of saving face while removing the problem. "I hope you learn from it," I said, meaning it. "Don't pretend to care," she snapped, the venom returning. "You won. Isn't that enough?" "I didn't win anything. I just survived." She laughed bitterly. "You did more than survive. You made me look like a fool." "No," I corrected. "You did that yourself. I just made sure people saw it." She left without another word, her footsteps uneven in the empty hallway. I sat in the silence afterward, feeling the weight of the past months settling on my shoulders. Friday brought Gregory back to the office. He called me in, and this time, his demeanor was entirely different. "The board reviewed your documentation," he said without preamble. "They're concerned about the financial irregularities." I nodded, saying nothing. "They're also impressed by your handling of the situation. Your restraint." "I did what was necessary." "You could have gone to the board directly, to the press. You could have made this much worse. That would have hurt the company. I have no interest in that." He studied me for a long moment. "What do you want, Rachel?" What did I want? My old position back? A raise? An apology? "I want to rebuild the department," I said finally. "I want the authority to do my job properly, and I want Madison's situation to serve as a lesson that competence matters more than connections." The board agrees. They're offering you Director of Strategic Operations, Madison's budget, her authority, plus a 40% salary increase. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt tired. I need it in writing, and I need autonomy. No more nepotism hires without departmental approval. Done. We shook hands, a formal conclusion to an informal war. But as I left his office, I knew this wasn't really about winning or losing. It was about endurance, about refusing to be silenced or diminished. That night, the team insisted on drinks to celebrate. As we toasted with cheap beer at our usual dive bar, Sarah raised her glass. "To Rachel," she said, "who proved that silence really can be golden." "To surviving," I corrected, clinking glasses with them all. But in my head, I heard my mother's voice one more time. Sometimes, the loudest statement you can make is refusing to make a sound. The quarterly board meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I'd attended these before, but always as a note-taker, a shadow in the corner. This time, I would present as Director of Strategic Operations, armed with 3 months of evidence that would seal Madison's fate permanently. I arrived at 7 a.m. to prepare the conference room. Each board member would receive a leather portfolio containing what I privately called the Madison Files, forensic accounting reports, client testimonials, and a timeline of destruction that read like a corporate crime novel. "Nervous?" Gregory asked, finding me arranging the portfolios. "Prepared," I corrected. He picked up one of the folders, flipping through it. His face tightened with each page. "This is thorough. This is truthful." The board members arrived promptly at 9, 5 executives who controlled Brightcore's future. I knew them by reputation: stern, numbers-focused, allergic to scandal. They took their seats, opened their portfolios, and the room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Gentlemen, Mrs. Crawford," I began, standing at the presentation screen. "What you're reviewing isn't just mismanagement, it's systematic fraud." Click. The first slide showed Madison's expense reports versus actual receipts. $73,000 in client entertainment that was personal shopping. Click. Falsified credentials. The European marketing certification that didn't exist. Click. The Henderson disaster, frame by frame, email by email. "Stop," Board Chairman William Crawford commanded. "Ms. Turner, are you suggesting criminal charges?" "I'm presenting facts. What you do with them is your decision." "Does Gregory know about this?" another member asked. Gregory shifted uncomfortably. "I'm learning the full extent now," I continued, my voice steady as a metronome. Each slide was another nail in Madison's professional coffin. But the killing blow came from an unexpected source, a video Tom had captured on his phone during one of Madison's meltdowns, where she explicitly stated she was bleeding the company dry because Daddy owes me. The room went silent. "How long did you know about this?" Crawford asked me. "I documented from day one. I acted when I had enough evidence to be believed." "You could have come forward sooner." "Would you have listened to an assistant accusing the CEO's daughter without ironclad proof?" No one answered. They didn't need to. The vote was unanimous. Madison would be terminated for cause, potentially prosecuted, and banned from any association with Brightcore. Gregory abstained, his face ashen. As the board members filed out, Crawford stopped beside me. "You showed remarkable restraint," he said quietly. "Most people would have gone scorched earth." "Scorched earth leaves nothing to rebuild on." He nodded approvingly. "We'll be watching your department's performance closely." After they left, Gregory and I stood alone in the conference room. He looked older, defeated, like he'd aged 5 years in an hour. "I failed her," he said quietly. "As a father, as a CEO. You loved her. That's not failure, just blindness. You could have destroyed us both. The press would have paid well for this story. I'm not interested in destruction. I'm interested in doing my job." He extended his hand. "Thank you. For your restraint. For saving what could be saved." I shook his hand, but said nothing. There was nothing left to say. That afternoon, I called a department meeting. The team gathered, sensing something monumental had shifted. "Madison Cole is no longer with the company," I announced. "Permanently. We have work to do." The relief was palpable, but I raised my hand before celebrations could begin. "We lost 3 clients. 2 more are wavering. Our reputation took a hit. Madison is gone, but her damage remains. We rebuild, starting now." "What's the plan?" Marcus asked. I turned to the whiteboard and began writing. "We're going to create something Madison never could, a campaign so innovative, so successful, that no one remembers the disaster. We're going to make the Henderson horror story a footnote." "The Phoenix Project," Sarah suggested, "rising from the ashes." "Perfect." We worked until midnight, ordering pizza, filling whiteboards, transforming 3 months of trauma into fuel for creativity. The energy was different now, focused, determined, unified. We weren't just colleagues anymore. We were survivors of the same war. At 11:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You think you've won, but I'll be back. This isn't over. M. I deleted it without responding. Let her rage into the void. My silence had already said everything necessary. Tom approached as we were packing up. Rachel, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Why didn't you just let her fail naturally? Why document everything? I considered the question. Because natural failure would have taken too long. Too many people would have been hurt. Sometimes justice needs a paper trail. He nodded, understanding. You saved all our jobs. We saved ourselves. I just kept good notes. As I finally left the office at 12:30 a.m., the security guard nodded respectfully. Heard about what happened, Ms. Turner. Good for you. Just doing my job, Frank. No, he said firmly. You did much more than that. I walked to my car through the empty parking garage, my footsteps echoing in the concrete chamber. Madison was gone. Her threats empty, her power evaporated. I'd won without raising my voice, without throwing a punch, without sacrificing my dignity. The silence had indeed spoken volumes. And finally, everyone had heard it. 6 months later, I stood in the same conference room where Madison had once tried to destroy me. But this time, I wasn't fetching coffee or taking notes. I was presenting the quarterly results to a room full of clients, board members, and industry journalists. Brightcore's strategic division has achieved 47% growth in 2 quarters, I announced, clicking through slides that showed nothing but success. We've not only recovered our lost clients, but added 12 new accounts, including Henderson Hotel's entire international portfolio. Margaret Henderson herself sat in the front row, nodding approvingly. The Morrison construction executives were there too. Along with Richardson Tech's entire board, they'd all come back, and they'd brought friends. The Phoenix Project, I continued, has become our signature campaign methodology. It's about transformation through adversity, rebuilding stronger than before. The applause was genuine, warm. Gregory Cole stood in the back, proud but humble. He'd learned to step back, to let competence lead over nepotism. Our relationship had evolved into one of mutual respect, professional, careful, but honest. After the presentation, as people mingled over champagne and canapes, Sarah approached with a knowing smile. Did you see the news about Madison? She asked quietly. I hadn't, and I wasn't sure I wanted to. But Sarah continued. She's in Phoenix, working as a junior coordinator at a startup, using a different last name, starting over. Good for her, I said, and meant it. Maybe she'd learn what I'd always known, that real power comes from competence, not connections. You're not angry anymore? Anger is loud. I prefer being effective. Marcus joined us, raising his glass. To the woman who proved that silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. The team gathered around. All of us who'd weathered the storm together. Derek with his anxiety under control. Tom with newfound confidence. Sarah with her divorce behind her and promotion ahead. We'd all grown from the experience, forged stronger in the fire Madison had inadvertently lit. Speech, someone called out. I raised my hand for quiet. The room settled. Waiting. 7 months ago, I began. Someone tried to silence me by taking my voice away. They thought if I couldn't speak up, I couldn't fight back. They were wrong. I paused, looking at each face in the room. Silence isn't the absence of power, it's the concentration of it. Every time I didn't argue, I documented. Every time I didn't complain, I prepared. Every time I fetched coffee with a smile. I was building a case that would speak louder than any shouting match. The room was utterly still, hanging on every word. To those of you who stood by me, who saw what was happening and refused to let it stand, thank you. You proved that integrity isn't dead in corporate America. It was just waiting for the right moment to speak up. And Madison? Someone asked from the back. Madison taught me something valuable, I said carefully. That sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone, it's letting them destroy themselves while you quietly build something better from the ruins they create. The party continued, but I slipped out onto the balcony for a moment alone. The Denver skyline stretched before me, lights twinkling in the gathering dusk. My phone buzzed. Another interview request, another company trying to poach me, another opportunity I didn't need. I thought about my mother, gone 5 years now, and her words that had carried me through the darkest moments. You don't need to shout to be heard, Rachel. The truth has its own volume. Ms. Turner? A young intern appeared beside me, nervous and eager. I just wanted to say what you did. It gives people like us hope. Those of us without connections, without family names that open doors. What's your name? Amy. Amy Chen. Well, Amy, let me tell you something. I turned to face her fully. Your work will always speak louder than your last name. Make sure it has something worth saying. She nodded eagerly and disappeared back into the party. I stayed on the balcony a moment longer, watching the sun set over the mountains. Somewhere out there, Madison was starting over, hopefully learning what I'd always known. Gregory was inside, finally seeing clearly. The board was planning my next promotion. But none of that mattered as much as this. I'd stayed true to myself. I'd refused to be diminished. I'd let my silence speak volumes. A text appeared on my phone from an unknown number. For a moment, I thought it might be Madison again, but it was from Margaret Henderson. Just watched your presentation. Your mother would be proud. The quiet ones really do change the world. I smiled, pocketed my phone, and walked back into the party. My party, my victory, my future. The woman who'd been silenced had found her voice, not in shouting or confrontation, but in the undeniable power of truth, patience, and the perfect documentation. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. You just have to make sure that when the silence finally breaks, you have something worth hearing. And I did. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below, and let's connect. If this story of silent strength resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever faced a similar situation where silence became your power? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments.